Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man sa'ara sabilihi ila yawmiddin, amma ba'd. So we continue discussing the hadith that we had started a few weeks back in this series of this explanation of Al-Arba'in Nawawi. And we have reached Hadith al-Thalathun, so reached the 30th hadith in this series that had been mentioned by Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala. So we'll be picking up directly from where we had left off in the last session, where we have covered matter regarding the narrator. We have discussed the matter concerning what had been said by the hadith, and also other matter pertaining to this particular hadith, and also takhrij of the hadith. So we'll be now discussing the meaning of the hadith and also the fawaid, the benefits that can be taken from the hadith. So as we had mentioned, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he started by mentioning, Inna Allaha farada al-fara'id fala tadayya'uha. So he mentioned that the meaning of which we had mentioned that Inna Allaha farada. So they mentioned regarding this matter, we mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have made binding. They mentioned that as for this word farada, that have become of those words that are used in this hadith, and it kind of somewhat give the meaning of something which is al-zama or awjaba, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means things that are compulsory, things to be carried out. So those things that we are not to be complacent about them. So they mentioned regarding concerning, so this matter is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encouraging us regarding, or this hadith is encouraged regarding that those things that are said to be compulsory, we should try our best to fulfill them and not to be negligent about carrying out those acts. Also you find the word which is al-fard, of those terms that are used by the ulama, and in particular in the science of usul al-fiqh and fiqh related. So of this term al-fard, that it is more widely used in the science of fiqh and its related topics. So you find the ulama concerning the word al-fard, that as they mentioned that when they mentioned that فَلَا تُدَيُّعُهَا, that also you are not to leave away these things, so not to leave away these acts, not to become complacent regarding these things that are compulsory upon us, by way of either salat or siyam or any other act that are considered to be compulsory. One should alter those things and fulfill them as they are to be fulfilled, and not to be complacent regarding these acts that are compulsory upon us. They discuss concerning a masala, a matter where the ulama, they discuss this term, or what has become a term that is used amongst the ulama of fiqh and usul al-fiqh, where they use the word al-fard. So the word al-fard is of those terms that are used within the science of fiqh and usul al-fiqh. So they mentioned regarding concerning that with the ulama usul al-fiqh, that so you find that the ilm al-fiqh, that it composed of different science. So the ilm al-fiqh, which is known concerning the ahkam Sharīʿah related to things, that it comprises, so in studying of fiqh, that it requires the person to have knowledge concerning fiqh. Also within the science of fiqh, it requires a person to know ilm usul al-fiqh. So the person wants to be proficient in the science of fiqh. Of those things that they have to learn is usul al-fiqh. So usul al-fiqh are those qawahid al-am, those general principles that the person use out to extract ahkam, and also be able to identify what are adillatun shar'iyyah. So with usul al-fiqh are the principles and the guidelines that are the person who follow, that aids and assists them in extracting ahkam rulings on different matters in general. So that's concerning ilm usul al-fiqh. So for a person to be proficient in the science of fiqh, then a person were to say this thing is wajib or this thing is not, the person also have to study ilm usul al-fiqh. So he knows what are the rules, and also he has set rules that he follows. He has set rules that are followed. Then of the science of related to fiqh, we have usul al-fiqh. We have ilm usul al-fiqh. Also a science which now give you concerning, so we have usul al-fiqh. Then also we have al-fiqh, where the person then now who's equipped is able can pass the appropriate ruling on different things. This thing is wajib, this thing is mustahab, this thing mubah, this thing is haram. So the person who now, so the application of usul al-fiqh is applied regarding in fiqh. So the practicality of ilm usul al-fiqh is applied on matters regarding in the area of fiqh. So they mentioned regarding concerning as for fiqh, that the ulama that have classified regarding anwa al-aqsam al-fiqh, that it fall into a thing which is under the category of fiqh, thing which is said to be ibadat, acts of ibadat, acts of worship, including salat, siyam, hajj, zakat, and the likes. Those are ibadat. The second area of fiqh, they mention furu' al-fiqh, matters that mean to mu'amalat. So mu'amalat will include matters regarding al-buyu, trade, transaction, buying and selling, and other matters of that category. Also some will include matter regarding nikah and the likes. Then a third category, according to ulama, they'll mention ahwal shakhsiyya. Ahwal shakhsiyya. So ahwal al-shakhsiyya, regarding they mention like matters regarding zawaj, marriage, divorce, mirat, hadana. These things will fall into ahwal al-shakhsiyya. Concerning personal matters or civil matters that are civil personal matters will fall under that category. Then the fourth level or the fourth category of matter relating to fiqh, they mention uqubat wal janayat. So matter regarding Islamic punishment. So those who have broken the law or transgressed the law, what are the appropriate designated punishment for those crimes that concerning uqubat. Then also of uqubat, you find the hudud, qisas, and the like will fall under that category. Then the fifth is matter relating to al-qada wal shahadat wal ithbat. So matter regarding concerning that matter related to judiciary matters, and also things of witnesses, shahadat wal ithbat, and also things are said to be validation of things or bringing proof for things. So that's concerning qada wa shahadat wal ithbat. Then they mention this, we said five. The sixth would be as-siyasat al-shar'iyyah. Also in fiqh, also matter relates to as-siyasa al-shar'iyyah. So matter regarding governance. So how to govern of things by way of the state, and also different department relating to how to govern and to organize things. Then also, that's also a part of fiqh. So of the ulama who put it in that detail, ibadat, mu'amalat, ahwal shakhsiyah, uqubat, qada wa shahadat, and also as-siyasa al-shar'iyyah. But others kind of somewhat summarize those into either 4 or 3 categories. Of some who kind of somewhat summarize those 6 areas into 3 area or 4 area. So for them you have ibad. So in the 4, those who put it into 4 categories, we have ibadat, mu'amalat, aqdiyah, matters regarding aqdiyah, that would include regarding uqubat, and matters regarding al-qada, and also matters regarding janayat, which is meaning al-hudud. Then those who place things into 3 categories, they have ibadat, mu'amalat, wa umur as-siyasa. So those who put it into 3 categories, ibadat, mu'amalat, and also the third will be siyasa. So that's concerning all the ulama. They can somewhat divide a matter that relates to fiqh. So in books of fiqh that you'll see generally concerning these things are covered. Less, which is more discussed separately, matter that relates to siyasa. That's usually in books of fiqh. There's going a book of fiqh, then ibadat, mu'amalat, janayat, hudud, qada wa shahada. Those things are normally covered. Except for, at times, in most cases, matter that relates to as-siyasa al-shar'iyyah is usually covered separately. Is covered separately, but is within of fiqh. So the person wants to study fiqh, then it would be for the person to study all these areas of fiqh. And also we said the usul al-fiqh, also the mention of the category concerning maqasid al-shar'iyyah, so regarding concerning the Islamic objective or maqasid al-fiqh, also al-qawaid al-fiqhiyya, and also al-furuq al-fiqhiyya. All of that relates to fiqh. So fiqh is somewhat still intensive regarding what is covered regarding areas related to al-fiqh. So even you find that in some Islamic universities, that in the area they mention that concerning that they mention al-sharia or kullatu sharia, in their kullatu sharia, that they'll have all these things of the person can specialize in fiqh, which means concerning what is halal and haram, and cover those different areas that we just mentioned, or a person wishes to study in, specialize in usul al-fiqh, and its related thing, which would be qawaid al-fiqhiyya, usul al-fiqh, so the person understand the principles of how to extract and determine ahkam. Or a person wishes to study matter relating to qada, with a person who wants to be a judge, then it'll go in that department. But it's all under kullati sharia. So, and also السياسة الشرعية. So at times they'll put both. So, and also السياسة الشرعية, which will be concerning, as they say, let's say governance. I use the word governance, not per se politics. So السياسة الشرعية regarding how to govern, and also that you'll find that people also wish to go in matters of governance, then they'll also go in that department. So that's concerning matters relating to how they have looked at fiqh. So back to regarding al-fard wal-wajib. So within that category regarding al-fard wal-wajib, that will be covered in the matters regarding al-fiqh wa usul al-fiqh. We'll find that the fuqaha and the usuliyin, that for the usuliyin, that they categorize regarding ahkam al-shar'iyya. So regarding ahkam al-shar'iyya into two categories. Ahkam al-shar'iyya taklifiyya wa ahkam al-shar'iyya wad'iyya. So the ulama of usul al-fiqh in matters that relates to ahkam al-shar'iyya, that they put it into two categories. Ahkam al-shar'iyya al-taklifiyya, that relates to the servant. And that who said that even the thing the servant will carry out would either think that either wajib / fard, according to jumhur of the ulama, or things will be categorized by way of ahkam al-shar'iyya, by way of thing which is mandub or mustahab, or third, things that are said to be mubah, fourth, things that are said to be makruh, and fifth, things that are said to be haram. So ahkam al-shar'iyya at-taklifiyya will fall into one of those five categories. Things will fall, so anything the person is involved in, it will fall into one of those five category in most part. Then wad'iyya is a separate category. But as for al-fard wal-wajib, will fall into the first category, which is ahkam al-shar'iyya at-taklifiyya. So we said jumhur of the ulama, they kind of somewhat, they defined fard wal-wajib as the same thing. May differ in term or words that are used, but the meaning is generally the same. Where they mention that the meaning of something being fard or wajib, ma amra bihi ash-shari'. So al-fard, al-wajib, what's the meaning? Ma amra bihi ash-shari', something that has been commanded by the ash-shari', the legislator, ala wajh al-ilzam, or hatam. So al-wajib wal-fard would mean, according to the ulama of usul al-fiqh, something that have been commanded, or those commands that have been given by the shari', the legislator, and by way of it is compulsory to be done. It is compulsory to be carried out. Yuthab ala fa'ili, where now the thamara, now the fruits of this, the benefit of this, yuthab fa'ili, the person who does the act, he will be rewarded. وَيَأْثِمْ tarik, and the one who have left it is sinful. That's wajib. That's considered to be wajib or / fard with jumhur of the ulama. So jumhur will be al-Malikiyya, Shafi'iyya, and the Hanabila in most part. As for the Ahnaf, that they distinguish between fard and wajib. The Ahnaf, and also a riwayah and Ahmed, or some of the Hanabila, where they make a distinction between fard, what is said to be fard, and what is said to be wajib. So for the Ahnaf and others with them, that they see which is fard is of a higher degree than wajib. So a matter that is said to be fard, that is of a higher degree than that of wajib. And they make a distinction regarding al-fard. They mention that it's ثبت بالدليل قطعي. So qat'i, as and they mentioned that if something is said to be fard, is because the evidence or the source that is being used for this, that is being derived from, is something which is qat'i, one which is, I don't want to use absolute, but qat'i, another word for qat'i, that so they mentioned, so meaning al-qat'i, that the persons that unwavered, that is not the person have no doubt in it. Is not, there's no uncertainty. So qat'i, the person have like certainty regarding the text that is being, or the evidence being used. So that evidence to make something to be considered to be qat'i, like we said now, with certainty, a degree of certainty, that either Quran or Hadith al-Mutawatir. So fard, when I use the word fard, that the evidence for this matter is taken from the Quran or Hadith mutawatir. Then as for them, the second type of thing that we'll consider to be wajib, when the evidence used, that evidence is said to be dhanni. It's speculative. It is one which is, so it is somewhat a relative, it's not as concrete and as solid as al-qat'i. So qat'i would be like a solid evidence, which we said would be Quran or hadith al-mutawatir. As for al-wajib, it will fall in the category of things according to them that the evidence, the source of it, the dalil that is used is what? Dhanni. Dhanni meaning ahadith al-ahad. Ahadith al-ahad. So that's concerning that difference between us that have been put forward regarding of those who make that distinction regarding fard wa wajib, most of the ahnaf, and this is based upon the evidence that the source that is used, the source that is being used. So fard, evidence qat'i, wajib, evidence dhanni, according to them. Or some mention that if something is from the sunnah, the bulk, you understand, they say it is wajib. And if something from the Quran, it is fard. As we said, ahadith al-ahad, ahadith al-mutawatir is not that much, not many. So for some, if the evidence is from the Quran, then it is qat'i, solid evidence, unchallenged. And if it is from the sunnah, more so from the sunnah, then it's said to be wajib, because it is dhanni. So that's concerning that difference between some. Or I will mention regarding concern at fard, with some they mention at fard, ma thabata bil istifada. So another word, istifada, something which is well established. Istifada, something is well established. Multiple evidence for that thing, multiple source for that thing. And I mentioned that wajib will be those things which is by way of ijtihad. Wajib by way of ijtihad. So for example, they mention the compulsory salawat, dhuhr, asr, maghrib, isha, wal fajr, will be what for them? Qat'i. So that will be, for them it will be qat'i. So that we consider to be fard. That we consider to be fard. So al-dhuhr, fard. But as for example, witr. Witr salat, they will consider to be witr to be wajib. With jumhur of the ulama, witr will be in the category of mandub. It will be something which is said mustahab. But with jumhur, dhuhr will be either slash wajib slash fard. So you have those difference in the terminology that are used by jumhur wal the ahnaf. So that's concerned that matter.
And they will consider witr to be wajib because there's many hadith mutawatir.
They said that by way of, it is affirmed by the sunnah. So you have a hadith from the sunnah that kind of somewhat mentioned that it is something to be done. So they said no, that is kind of somewhat encouraged, but because the evidence from the sunnah, they say it is wajib, not fard. But I would say that with jumhur would take that to mean mustahab. But they, in their language, that is taken to be wajib. So something that you should hold to and not miss. Something to also, but the evidence used is by way of, more so by way of the sunnah, according to them. So that's now also with fard, that slash wajib, that of those things regarding concerning that, if the person does so, is considered to be something that he done is praiseworthy, and also yuthab, that is rewarded for what he has been done, that he has done, and also that they mentioned that ya'athim, that there is a sin if you have left that act. So it becomes sinful for leaving something which is fard. So that's concerning the definitions that are given. Then of the next things that they mentioned So it says, no, al-fard will be concerned of those people that concern that the ulama of fiqh wa usul al-fiqh will be of those ones that will go in details regarding this discussion and knowing these terminologies and passing. Then I mentioned وَحَدْ حُدُودًا فَلَا تَحْتَدُوهَا. Then also it mentioned that the second matter that also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have put concerning that hudud, boundaries, that you should not exceed. You should not go beyond. So they mentioned regarding concerning these hudud that are mentioned, that these hudud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that one hudud can have the meaning concerning adhin. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving the permission for you to carry out these acts. The had could mean that you have been given permission to carry out these acts. So not go beyond, not to exceed what you have been given. So you have been given permission, don't exceed the permission or the limits that have been given. So al-had could mean concerning that ma'adhina, what you have been given permission, allowance to carry out or to do of these things. And this idhn, al-had, in this meaning, in this context of adhin, they have been allowed. It could mean that the thing that you are allowed could be wajib, mandub, or mubah. So it could vary. So the had, as to the limit that you've been given permission, you've been granted permission to do of these things. The thing that you have been granted permission to do, it could fall under being something which is wajib, or mustahab, or mubah. So it varies. So each thing, so to look to see what each is by a case by case, to see when it becomes wajib, when it becomes mandub, and when it becomes mubah. So you go by a case by case situation. But those rulings, you're not to exceed them. You're not to exceed those rulings. So at times, not exceeding something which is something which is wajib, that making it, so I said, not to exceed that, exceed those limits of the ruling that have been passed on those things, by doing something which is the opposite. So that which is wajib, you're doing the opposite, and you can now start to do things which is haram. And also of exceeding those limits could be the person that you're passing a judgment on something that is not deserving. You're passing a judgment on something that is not deserving. So that thing's have to be mandub, and you make it wajib, and that's not the case. Then that could be exceeding the limits. So that judgment on that thing that should be mustahab, but then you're making it into something that becomes wajib. Then that becomes the person now exceeding that limit. So passing a judgment on something that is not deserving. Passing the judgment on something that is not deserving. So the mention regarding concern this matter where the person may pass the limits, where now you fall into doing al-dhulm. Well, that's what I mentioned, tilka hududullah. وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّى حُدُودُ فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. So I mentioned regarding concern that of the one who have exceed Allah's set limits, judgment on things that are there, you are not to go beyond this. And the one who exceeds the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he have wronged himself. He has wronged himself. So it could be in passing that the limits that are there, you have exceed and done opposite of what is expected, or you're passing judgment on things that they're not deserving. Passing judgment on things wrongfully. So that's concerning of those meanings that are there. Then I mentioned also what could be meant by hudud, hadda hudud, of the meaning that they mention here concerning that meaning concerning mention maharim, concerning hudud, meaning maharim Allah. Those things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts certain concept Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made thing which is haram. And you're not to fall into this, you're not to fall into those things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hadda hudud, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make things haram, then you should not indulge in those things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made things haram, do not indulge in those things, do not fall into those things. And now you have now taken on, you're now doing something which is sinful. So it could mean maharim, regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said maharim, hu'ad, maharim, do not go beyond or fall into those things which is haram. So those are the meaning that they mention regarding this particular matter. So they mentioned Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, that regarding concerning that a discussion regarding had hududullah or haddan as to what is meant by this. So haddan, that he mentioned that as for what is meant regarding concern that had also is a form of Islamic punishment. That I mentioned concern that uqubat al-muqaddar, that is a punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have set certain punishment that goes along with it. So certain sins that have been certain punishment that have been designated for certain things that a person fall into. So Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala, he can somewhat more inclined towards that in this al-murad bil hudud fil hadith maharim, that what is meant by this concept, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's setting these boundaries, which is thing which is haram and thing which is wajib. So these are things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala boundaries regarding things that are wajibat and also thing which is haram. You should not cross those boundaries. So you have that. And I've other mentioned that what is actually mentioned concerning an-nahi and tajawuz hadi hudud, that what is also intended that for the person also it's a caution about the person crossing the boundaries. So what also could be the meaning of what could be taken, one an-nahi an tajawuz hadihi hudud, that one not to cross the boundaries. So Islam have given boundaries regarding halal and haram. So a thing which is halal, you have been given allowance that you can do of certain things, do of within the allowance given. Do within the allowance given. So as an example, food and drink. We have been allowed regarding what we are allowed to drink and to eat, but also there are certain things that we are not allowed. Don't go into the red zone. Because you've been giving thing which is enough and satisfactory enough that you can live off that which is halal. So do not fall into the red zone, the haram zone, by doing things which is eating and drinking things that are said to be haram. So that's concerning those matters they mentioned. So a general person that you're exceeding the limits. You're exceeding the limits that have been set. So now you fall into that which is haram. So what is being forbidden here? That you should not go beyond the limits that have been set by the Sharīʿah. Then I mentioned وَحَرَّمَ أَشْيَاءَ. Then I mentioned also of those things, حَرَّمَ أَشْيَاءَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have forbidden things. Again, regarding that, there's things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made forbidden, that you should not, again, fall into those things. You should not violate, fall into the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made forbidden. So he showed that in Islam, there's do's and there's don'ts. So in Islam, there's do's and don'ts. There's things which is halal and there's things that are haram. So in Islam, so everything is somewhat that balances out where, yes, there's things that we're allowed, but also there's things we're not allowed. There's things that are halal, permissible, and also things that are haram, forbidden. So in Islam, not everything is halal and not everything is haram. So it's striking a balance to know that in Islam, that there's things that yes, we're allowed to do, but also to understand there's things we're not allowed to do and we should avoid them. So that's concerning the boundaries that are set. And in everything you find that in every society, in every religion, that also you have those boundaries of halal and also of haram in different matters. So they mention regarding concern of the thing which is haram, that one not to fall into those things which is haram. To the extent you find some of the ulama in giving attention to even sometimes identifying the haram. And if we were to look in general, thing which is haram would be the minority compared to the halal. If we were to look in general, the things that are haram, which concern ashya, regarding concern that general stuff, that you find that we find more halal than haram. So they mentioned regarding concern that al-haram, those things which are said to be haram. So they meant it's not concerning those matters regarding halal wal haram. It mentioned regarding concerning that statement of Ibn Shubrama, one of the ulama of the Salaf, قال أجب ممن يحتمي من الحلال مخافة الداء ولا يحتمي من حرام مخافة النار. So the meaning of what he mentioned that regarding zina, that he was somewhat amazed, taken aback by those people who try to protect themselves or seek protection from illness by staying away from halal. So not exceeding the limits regarding halal, so as not to fall into getting ill. Then he mentioned, but those same people that they are not mindful of falling into haram out of they're not as cautious. So people who are cautious regarding halal, not to fall, not to become sick. Or then he mentioned those people also, they're not cautious regarding halal, fearing of the fire. So you find those people who, that in certain things they're very careful, people today in this society, that they're very cautious regarding in their lifestyle. They go to the gym, that they want to be healthy. Because of not wanting, they want to be healthy so as to protect themselves from illnesses and bad health and to wear themselves down. But also you find that those same people, that they'll indulge in things which is haram and have no reflection about an-nar. See how people are like that. So that somewhat they are very mindful, cautious about certain things, but not that they say seeing the bigger picture. So cautious about some things, but other things they're neglectful. And you find that people are like that. So he said, is having with Islam is having that balance. That in the dunya, about our health, that we are cautious, but also that we have to be cautious regarding haram because of what comes with it, which is an-nar. That comes with it, an-nar. So they mentioned regarding concerning the next matter, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned the hadith, وَسَكَتْ عَنْ أَشْيَاء. So a thing which is haram, and also matters where it is clear regarding those things which is haram. So thing which is haram, either those matters are thing which is clear. لا خلاف بين الناس. Things that are haram, that there's no second opinion. So those things which will become clear to us that it is haram, of those things regarding haram, that a person try to avoid getting close to those things, or putting himself in situation where it become more easier for them to fall into it. So of haram at times you avoid the situation and circumstance. Of haram at times that you have to avoid the situation and circumstance that you don't get pulled into it. And do then the final thing. So I mentioned regarding concern matter regarding a zina, that regarding concern the thing to protect the person from zina, that the person doesn't understand your relationship with people who are women that are ajnabiyya, that we kind of somewhat we are mindful regarding not touching them, how we speak to them, how you look at them. So all those things are in place so as not to fall into the sin, the final sin, which is az-zina. So you have preventative things that are in place so as not to fall into the actual final act itself. So with haram, there's cases like those. And we said with haram, the thing which is clear, inna al-halal bayin wa inna al-haram bayin, as we have discussed before. So there's thing which is haram, which is clear. And there's things that is mutashabih, regarding what's the appropriate ruling on those matters. And at times, so of those things that the person can somewhat to take a line of caution. Those things which is unclear, that border, and is it haram, then a person take a line of caution if he's unclear as to the ruling because it's on borderline. So ihtiyat, the person can somewhat leave away those things so as to preserve his deen and his honor, because he's unclear, it's on borderlines. Then they mentioned the next matter regarding Omar that he mentioned regarding concern in Sharia. Matter which mentioned was sakata an ashya, things that have been silent upon those matters. There's silence on those matters. So what's the approach regarding those matters? They mentioned regarding concern those things that are silent on their ruling, that there's no clear judgment on those things or text on that matter. There's no clear, explicit text on that matter. There's no clear text on that matter. So it's silence, for or against. So what's the approach to those matters that the person can take so there's no clear hukum on that matter. There's no clear hukum on that matter. Somewhat silent, nothing been mentioned for or against that matter. So it mentioned rahmatan lakum is a mercy, that those matters are mercy for you. But then they mentioned regarding concern those matters that becomes a mercy, that of those things that they mentioned ma sakata an, those things, those or matters where the judgment is somewhat silent on it. If one can somewhat how to approach those matters, that either one, that thing which is maskut an, is somewhat, the ruling is silent on those matters, it's a matter of ibadah. A matter which is, that matter falls into the category of thing which is said to be act of ibadah. So ibadah would be what? Salah and its related matters, siyam, zakat, hajj, umrah. Those things are ibadat. So in those matters regarding ibadat, if something which is, you don't know the judgment on that matter, they said that you go back to the asl, which is tawaqquf. So matters which is ibadat, is that the person, tawaqquf, the person, it is a hurma that you do not do anything until you have permission from ash-shari'. So the person is confused about a matter regarding acts of ibadat, then the person go back to what? You don't do it. You leave it. Leave off that act. Because the asl of things of ibadat, as I mentioned, tawqifiyya. They use the word also, tawqifiyya, which is you do not do anything until you have a evidence to give you permission. That's tawqifiyya. So things that are, so matters the act of ibadat, if the person now is uncertain, unclear as to what's the judgment on that matter, then the person, if it is maskut an, they go back to the asl, which is you leave it until there's evidence to say otherwise, to say that you're allowed. So it is hurma, you are forbidden until there's something you have evidence to say otherwise. Then the next of those matters that they mentioned regarding that those things which is silent on those matters, ashya. And they mentioned sakat an ashya. So they mentioned sakat an ashya more so regarding things other than acts of ibadat. So this ashya that is being mentioned, that are things other than ibadat. As ibadat, as we mentioned, it have a certain rule that is followed, that it is tawqifiyya, that a person does not embark or do anything until he has evidence to carry out that act. That's acts of ibadat. So outside ibadat, they mention ashya, which is, so those other things outside ibadat, then the general ruling that the person, that is allowed that act until there's something to say otherwise. So outside ibadat, you are given the green light until there's something by the shari', the legislator, to say otherwise. So in, for example, buyu, babul buyu, you're allowed to engage in any business transaction until there's something to say otherwise. And the Sharia mentioned certain transactions is haram. So outside those ones, you're allowed. So a ribawiyah, thing that is related to riba, is haram. So we said, but general concerns, you find that less of don'ts are there in things concerning the general affairs. That generally that you can go ahead until there's something to say otherwise. They mention with the exception of certain things. So things regarding intimacy, there's a no until you have evidence to say otherwise. So regarding certain matters, regarding, like for example, relationship, that you cannot have just any relationship. You only have that, you only stick to what the Sharia have mentioned. So in general concern as an ashya outside ibadat, that it's mubah until there's something to say otherwise. Then I mention غير النسان regarding concern رحمة لكم, regarding concern those things I mentioned وسكت عن أشياء رحمة لكم. So that's considered that those things which is that it shows that shows that we should have more leniency on those matters of things which is non-ibadat. As the person who violate concerning things of ibadat, if you push the person violate those things of ibadat regarding exceeding the limits that have been set in ibadat, then you fall into bidah. Then the person become prone to fall into bidah. So the person regarding ibadat is not a person is adding, putting things that there's no evidence for it. So then a person start to open the door to al-bidah. The person start to open the door to bidah. So regarding concern things of, so even though it is something which is silent in ibadat, if you open the door to accept things that is somewhat, there's no text for it, then you open the door to bidah. You open the door to bidah. Then as for ashya, then also mukhalafat wal haram. So thing which is the general things, then a person then open the door to things that are said to be haram. And also ad-dalal. In matters of aqidah, if things that are maskut an. In matters of aqidah, we discussed concerning the 2 points I discussed before were more concerning fiqh related. So matters of ibadat and other than ibadat, things of mu'amalat and the likes, but in matters of aqidah, what's the thing? What's the approach? In any matter of aqidah. So it could be matters regarding iman billah and different areas, or al-malaika, or kutub, or rusul, or yawm al-akhir, or qadar. So these matters of aqidah. They understand that if someone said no, that things that are somewhat no text, then what would we do? That's even worse. But also, someone said if there's no text, then we'll leave it. So matter of ibadah, we said things of ghaibiyat, then you only go with what you have evidence for. So it becomes like matter of tawqifiyya, like ibadat. So if there's no text, then I cannot take on that matter. So a person might ask, just for say a conversation, a person does, what do you call? You have human beings that talk about, they have jinn are established, but they call them ETS, aliens. Does alien exist? You understand? The person are discussing, does alien exist? You understand? A creature that look like a lizard but can speak, or whatever form they may have. You understand? So outside what we know regarding, we know of jinn, we know of malaika, we have ins, we have hayawanat, but is there aliens? Whatever, you understand, whatever person, you understand? That no matter, khalas, Sharia ma, leave that. If you want, that's your business. You understand? But to say this, Islam, so those matters, you leave it. So matters regarding in terms of the unseen, regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and think of the unseen of Aqidah, that we're going to we go according to the text. Concerning that, so we go according to the text. So matter of that, so the text said such and such, that what we accept. There's no text for this matter, then we leave it. Eh?
If they came with like someone said there's aliens, but we wouldn't anchor up on the.
No, there's a class in that matter. Ilmuhu indallah. May not. But as for text, we have no text, so we leave that matter. And not to overly dwell in that matter. Because you can't bring proof and I can't bring proof. So leave it. And work with what we know, not what we do not know. And that which is, we're just speculating. So on those matters, so things of the unseen, then we can somewhat leave those matters and refer to as we leave those matters regarding the core matters of Aqidah and also core matters of Aqidah, then it goes back to text. We believe in the text that have come forward. We believe in the text. That which is not mentioned in the text, then those matters are left. Aywa. Then it mentioned rahmatan lakum regarding concern that what's the consequence or what's the benefit of this, which is the benefit regarding concern those things that that is a rahmah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon you. Where certain things have been left maskut an, so leave those matters in a sense of not to challenge those matters, not to exceed, not to challenge those matters. And that's a mercy for you regarding those matters. So not to dwell and question things that you need not to. So do not overly burden yourself with things that have been left. So things of the dunya, then leave it. And work with what you know and leave other things. Then I mention after then, and for the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon mankind, or upon his servant, that things that are somewhat maskut an, so you find things where, but those things maskut will still fall into either things to be mubah or things but the person understand that is either mubah, but if you fall into things of ashya, they see it as mubah until prove otherwise. If things of ibadat, then a person leave those things until there's evidence. Then I mention of those matters, he mentioned غير nisyan. Then also it's not by way of nisyan. That Allah does a mercy to you, and also it's not out of nisyan. Not out of nisyan. Regarding concerning the ahkam of those things, not out of, regarding the judgment of those things, it's not done out of nisyan, out of forgetfulness. So they mentioned that also he proves regarding that, that intifa and nisyan Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not described regarding of nisyan. It's not said to be described with nisyan. Then it mentioned also فَلَا تَبْحَثُوا عَنْهَا, and also of the next warning وَلَا فَلَا تَبْعَثُوا عَنْهَا, that also not for you to overly investigate that matter and to research into that matter. So for the person to know those boundaries, concerned that of things that we need not to go into, dwell into those matters unnecessarily, ask about those matters unnecessarily, just leave them as they are. Leave them as they are. So you might find certain things that may warrant at some time the person to look into, and something it doesn't warrant this. It doesn't warrant this. So for example, overly looking into thing, investigating thing, that for every food, for example, there's food items that we have out there, that they have a name, isn't it? So for example, ice cream. Even though everything is ice cream, but you have different companies that produce ice cream. Without mentioning, you understand, you have different companies. So the person says, okay, ice cream is halal, but the company, do I need now? For example, the company, you have Clark's, you have Baker's, you have Jones, you have Jim, you have Jack. Jack, Joan, who are these people? You start to go into the matter. Not per se the ice cream, so the ice cream is halal, but as for the company, is this company, this, that, who are these people? There's no need for that. There's no need. The main thing, that the ingredient, that product itself, the ice cream, is halal or haram. And that based upon what? The ingredients. If the ingredients is halal, khalas. As for the company that made it, then that's the next thing. Do you need to look into that matter? Unnecessarily. There's no need for that. For you just to find the finished product, which is the ice cream, is it halal or haram? Unless for those who with a different matter regarding that boycotting of particular, companies because of certain things that they're involved in. With me? So boycotting of certain companies or even product because of the company, certain product based upon the company that produced those company, other things that they support. That's against Islam and the Muslim, openly and blatantly. Then that's a different discussion. With me? So that's concerned. So you're looking concerning, you might find companies that may be supporting of things that's against for the Muslim and Islam, and they do so openly and blatantly. You understand? That's a different matter regarding the company itself. Then we're looking at the product itself regarding concerns the ice cream as a flavor, or ice cream as something as a food, or something there. The main thing for us is halal. As for package it, the packaging on it, as for the company name, then that's a different matter. That's not, that person shouldn't delve into those things. Then they mentioned, so that's concerning the excessive looking into matters, into matters. But there's things that to be investigated. So they mentioned that thing which is halal, which is clear, and thing which is haram, based upon the evidence for it is very clear. So you might find certain matters, that certain things that are very clear, the conclusion, the ruling on that matter is very clear by way of the text. So the person that accept the text and go along with the text. Then you have also something which is haram and the same. The text for it is clear. Then those matters of ijtihad, the person that can investigate and look further by way of research. So you have certain matter which may require further investigation. You are aware that there's a discussion between the ulama, a matter of ijtihad. Then the person try to research on that matter as much as he's able. And sometimes the research is not restricted, that sometimes the matter might still, a person might research a matter, there's nothing that's forbid the person of re-looking at the matter again. I might find certain matters that a matter may be discussed, that at that time the person researched the matter looked into the matter 10 years ago. And since then, I haven't revisited that matter ever again. But you have taken a position with a matter of ijtihad, and you find that when that matter was discussed, maybe the views was that since then you find much more research paper have been done on that same matter. But that person haven't looked at that, is not unaware of all those other research paper on that matter, because he's satisfied with what he has looked at over 10, 20 years ago and haven't revisited the matter. But there's other things that others who have looked into the matter, discussed the matter, and may just want the person just to someone else revisit the matter themselves, even for them to revisit the matter, because of the different things that or the different papers that have been done on that research. So that's so said on those matters, the person can research, not restrict, and also even concerning even the madha'ib. The person Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki, and Hanbali, he only knows what is within his madhab. He only knows that which is in his madhab. I've never looked outside or over on the other side. You understand? So it means, so I've looked into my madhab, but I've never looked into what is said by the other madhahib. So you might find certain people that, like even online, you have some of the individuals who have, like, sometimes they'll display of a review of their library or show a display of their library. Have you ever seen any of those? People showing their libraries, what they have as Islamic, the Islamic library, and sometimes you find that some person, like, he's of a particular madhab, and all he has is book of that madhab, nothing more, nothing from the other side. You understand? So he has Shafi, is Maliki, or Hanafi, or Hanbali, and all his books in fiqh is all from that madhab. You rarely find a book from the other madhab or madhahib. Then that's somewhat narrow. That's somewhat narrow. Because you're only restricted to what is within your madhab. So that type of approach and that look, that library is still somewhat, as I consider to be, it's still narrow. It's still narrow. You could have all the books of the Hanafi, all the books of the Shafi. But if they understand it just for your madhab only, then that's a bit narrow. That's a bit narrow. So those are concerned the ahkam that they mentioned regarding this particular hadith, but also to understand concern that, ahkam or Sharīʿah is not restricted only to Quran or Sunnah. Ahkam or Sharīʿah concerning adillah that is used to derive ruling on things, it's not only restricted to Quran or Sunnah. So a person that when a person that that my fiqh Quran and Sunnah concerning that in most part. But the Quran and the Sunnah as being the two main sources, but also the Quran and the Sunnah have give allowance to other sources of that qiyas wal ijma and others. Qawl Sahaba, you understand? Al-Qawl, Al-Shari'a man qablana. So you have these other sources that sometimes are used in deriving judgments or passing ruling on things. So the Quran is the main source, but they have also give allowance for other sources to be used. With me? So
Quran and Sunnah, the main sources.
The main sources, but they also have give allowance to others, other sources with of ijma, al-qiyas. So these are other sources that the Quran and Sunnah acknowledges. Acknowledge, these are the sources. And you have other sources that have been acknowledged, but there's a khilaf. Al-Shari'a man qablana, the Sharia of the people before us, can we use their laws as a part of our, included as a part of our law? If we have nothing, then ulama mention, yes, it can be done. To a matter that our Sharia haven't per se discussed that matter or discuss that matter, but in another Sharia of the Anbiya, meaning of those before the Anbiya before, that in their Sharia there's a judgment on that matter, that it mentioned that we can take it from their Sharia, it's been authenticated. So that's concerning this particular hadith and of the ahkam that can be taken. So this inshallah ta'ala will end this particular hadith and continue next week with a hadith that follows will be a new hadith, with hadith al-hadi wa thalathun. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه السبيل والآخرة الحمد لله.